Prisons serve a funny function in society, if you think about it. They're basically giant concrete cages that we build so that the people who we don't want to be allowed to interact with society have some place to be where they can't interact with society. These are drug addicts, by and large. In many cases, they're hate-filled racists. And sometimes it's just people who aren't very smart, who got themselves into some trouble. I met a lot of inmates in my time locked up, but there's one man who stands head and shoulders above all the others as the most drug-addicted, hate-filled, stupidest racist that I ever met. His name was Prid. I called him that because he had a tattoo. White, P-R-I-D. Didn't know how to spell the word pride. I've spoken about him a little bit, and I don't want to go too deeply into his backstory, except to express that he was an angry, hate-filled man who wanted to be a neo-Nazi, but who didn't meet their standards. They wouldn't let him in their club. And so instead, he was just a perpetual drug addict who would snort anything he could get his hands on. And I mean literally anything, not just drugs, but anything. And who existed around the fringes of this white supremacist culture because he wasn't accepted, but he wanted to be a part of it. In addition to this laundry list of negative characteristics, he was also a bully and a hypocrite. You see, I call him a hypocrite because every meal he would walk around to the 30 or so people who all ate together because we lived in the same pod and beg, "Hey, excuse me, brother, do you have anything you're not going to eat? Just like some bread or maybe some vegetables or something?" That's fine. I wouldn't have a problem with this. If you're hungry, you can ask for food. But he would go to the same people that he had been calling ethnic slurs 5 minutes earlier. One day, a friend of mine, Mike, called him out on his behavior. Told him, "Hey, Prid, don't you have any dignity or self-respect? What's wrong with you that you would insult that man's heritage and then come and beg from him 5 minutes later? Why would he give you anything, and why would you accept it if you think you're so much better than him?" Prid got upset. He pushed Mike's tray off to the side, got up in his face, and, "Hey, why don't we just handle this right now if you don't like me?" The thing is that Mike was in his 50s, and he wasn't in any condition to be fighting with Prid, or even if he had wanted to fight with Prid, Mike had a good head on his shoulders. He wasn't going to get into a fist fight just over some nonsense like this. Prid continued to belittle and berate him, trying to make him feel small, prove that he was the big man, and Mike took it. "I'm sorry, man, I don't know what I was thinking, I shouldn't have said that to you, let's just let it be, I just want to do my time." And he did what he had to avoid a physical confrontation, because Prid frankly would have beaten him pretty badly. I said that before, he was an angry, hate-filled racist, and I wouldn't have wanted to be on the bad end of a beating from him. I don't think he'd know when to quit. I would have thought this was the end of it, that, Mike decided to let it go. However, an interesting series of events occurred over the course of the next 2 days that I'm going to describe. After meals, they hand out cleaning supplies. They hand out a Comet, liquid soap, cleaning powder, that kind of thing. Because I had been in the pod the longest, and I was going to be there the longest, I was fighting a pretty high-profile case, the cops would generally give all this stuff to me, and it would be my job to divvy it out to all the other inmates and make sure everybody got enough to clean their areas, but not so much that they could hoard it. This was pretty easy. Everybody was pretty responsible in their use of the cleaning supplies. But Mike came to me and said, "Hey, Aaron, can I get an extra couple spoons of the cleaning powder, the Comet?" I told him, "Yeah, sure, no problem." Every once in a while, somebody would ask for a little extra so that they could maybe scrub a sink, or they had something they thought was dirty they wanted to scrub. About, an hour after that, whenever we're putting up all the cleaning supplies, Mike came to me again. "Say, Aaron, you're the guy with a lighter in the pod, right? I know I see guys smoking every once in a while. You're the guy with a lighter?" You see, I had the lighter because, again, I'd been there the longest, and whenever the person who had previously managed to sneak a lighter in through creative means, he'd paroled, and he'd left it to me because he had to leave it to somebody, and I would be there the longest. And I told Mike, I went, "Well, yeah, I've got a lighter, but it's kind of the pod's lighter. It's not like it's mine. Do you need it for something?" And Mike said, yeah, I got to borrow it. And I asked him, you're not smoking, are you? This is a bad time to be smoking a cigarette. The cops will smell it. And he went, no, look, I'm handling something. I'm just mind your own business. I just want to use the lighter, and I promise I won't get you any trouble over it. Sure, why not? I gave him the lighter. But I was kind of curious, so I, out of the corner of my eye, tried to keep an eye on what he was doing, and I saw him making up a little bindle. What a bindle is if you have some powdered drugs or something like that, you wrap it in plastic and tie it, and then singe off the end so that if you have to perhaps swallow it or hide it somewhere, or if you just want to be able to keep it in such a manner that people won't find it, it's conveniently packaged. Generally, these things are very small in prison, just the size of the head of a matchstick, or maybe twice that big. I didn't give it a heck of a lot of thought. Apparently, Mike had managed to get his hands on some drugs, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, but it's none of my dang business, and so I pretended like I hadn't seen anything and went back to minding my own business. About 2 days later, we were eating, and Prid had just finished his evening ritual of going around the table begging from all 29 other people, hey, is there anything you're not going to eat? And I happened to notice him sit back down. And as he sat and put his hands under the table to lower himself down, and he started acting suspicious. I saw him and he got up and literally ran into the next room. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on, except about 30 seconds later there came a blood-curdling scream from in that cell. It was, oh my God! And so I leapt up and ran in there thinking maybe somebody had been hurt or was having a heart attack. And Prid was running away from a little bindle of what I immediately recognized as Comet, the cleaning powder. He was running away from that. It had been spread out with a couple little lines made up. There was a straw next to it, and he went to the sink and started rinsing out his sinuses. What had happened became crystal clear to me right then. Mike hadn't liked the way that he'd been treated and had decided to get some revenge. He'd taken that extra couple spoonfuls of Comet, made up a little bindle, and hid them someplace he knew Prid would find them. Because Prid would snort anything. Of course he'll snort some white powder with blue flakes in it that he finds on a table. And he thought he was going to get some drugs, and instead he got some Comet. This is a cruel and nasty prank. I don't think is the right word. Assault. I'm not sure where this falls. But jail, prison can be a cruel, nasty place. And I like to think that maybe Prid learned a lesson here. Let's be honest, I doubt it, but at the very least there's a lesson to be learned. Be very careful who you decide to bully, who you decide to physically intimidate, thinking that because you're bigger than them and stronger than them, you can make them feel small. Some people will let it go. They don't mind being made feel small. Others will let it fester and rot. They may come at you in a way that you don't expect it. Maybe it's a bindle of Comet at the table, or perhaps it's serious violence. I'm sure that people have been murdered in prison over far less than what Prid did. In general, it's a good rule of thumb to be kind to everybody that you meet and interact with. But if you find yourself, for whatever reason, being unkind, cruel, aggressive, being a bully, bear in mind that you cannot always predict what the consequences will be.